Oftentimes, when you're programming, you'll be tasked with answering a specific question. So, to answer a question through coding, you transform the information that you have access to. Now, keep in mind, information is also known as data, and you can transform this data in a way that addresses the question at hand. Now, a lot of data might be available, and it can be a little overwhelming to look at. So, how do you navigate all this data and determine which pieces of data are useful for your task? Well, you do this by categorizing the data into different types, which helps you stay organized so you can complete your task. I'm going to help you learn the main types of data and how they're written in Python. Let's begin with Booleans. Booleans are used to represent truth values. A Boolean can have a value of either true or false. And in Python, the data type of a Boolean is written as bool. Next, let's talk about integers. Integers in programming are like integers in math. They're whole numbers, including positive values, negative values, and 0. Examples of integers include 3, 0, and negative 100. And in Python, the data type of an integer is written as int. Next, let's talk about floating point numbers. Floating point numbers are numbers that are expressed as decimals. In other words, numbers with a decimal point, including negative values, positive values, and 0. Examples of floating point numbers include 0.0, 4 point, 4.0, 5e10, 5e negative 10, as well as negative 3.3. Now, 5e10 represents 5 times 10 to the 10, and 5e negative 10 represents 5 times 10 to the negative 10. And in Python, the data type of a floating point number is written as float. Now let's talk about strings. Strings are sequences of characters enclosed by quotes, and these quotes can be either a pair of double quotes or a pair of single quotes. Examples of strings include I am a string, elephant, a space, and empty quotes. And in Python, the data type of a string is written as str. Now, I want to zoom in on the difference between strings and integers. Any sequence of characters enclosed by quotes is a string. So, 7 in quotes is a string, while 7 on its own is an integer. Now, you might come across an arithmetic expression that has the value of an integer. This expression has the data type int. So, 2 plus 5 is an integer, while 2 plus 5 in quotes is a string. Now, what's the implication of 2 plus 5 being an integer and 2 plus 5 in quotes being a string? Well, they have different results when printed out. When you print out 2 plus 5, you get 7. Whereas when you print out 2 plus 5 in quotes, you get 2 plus 5 itself. This is because an arithmetic expression enclosed in quotes is a string. So there you have it. Booleans, integers, floating point numbers, and strings are 4 important data types to keep in mind when programming. And now you know how to categorize your data. Did you ever play Hangman as a kid? If so, you may remember that one player, also known as player 1, comes up with a word or a phrase, and the other player, also known as player 2, has to guess it. So when is the game over? Well, the game is over when player 2 either uses up all of their guesses without correctly guessing the word, or they guess the word correctly using the guesses they have. Either way, the players need to keep track of how many guesses are left throughout the game. So as a fun exercise, let's say you were tasked with coding Hangman, meaning you're building the game so it can be played online. How exactly would you keep track of how many guesses are remaining? You do this by using a variable. A variable in programming is like a storage box. You can use a variable to store any kind of information or data. Variables are useful because you can access and change the contents of a variable anytime you want. So I want to help you learn how to create your own variable. Let's go back to the storage box analogy. If you're organizing or packing some things, you may divide your things into categories based on what they are or what they're used for and put them into boxes. Then, you might label the boxes with a short word or phrase indicating what the boxes contain. Similarly, to create a variable, you must provide a name that indicates what the variable contains and provide the value of the variable, which is the data you want to store in the variable. Let's go back to the example from earlier. If you're coding Hangman, you can keep track of how many guesses are left in a game using a variable. You would create the variable at the beginning, since this information is needed from the start till the end of the game. You could name the variable number of guesses or any other relevant name. As for the value of this variable, you could set it to a number of your choice, representing how many guesses player 2 has in total per game. As the game progresses, each time player 2 makes a guess, the variable will need to be updated accordingly. The update consists of decreasing the variable's value by 1. So in the end, it would look something like this. In the first cell, I assume that this is the beginning of the Hangman game. I create a variable named guesses, and I assign it a value of 10. 10 represents how many guesses player 2 has in total per game. I chose 10 arbitrarily. If you're following along, you can choose any number you want to be the value of this variable. And then I print out guesses. When I do this, 10 gets printed out. In the next cell, I assume that player 2 has made their first guess. So I need to update the variable guesses. And I do this by decreasing the value of this variable by 1. So now when I print out guesses, I get 9. In the third cell, I assume that player 2 has made another guess. Again, I need to update the variable guesses. And I do this by decreasing its value by 1. Now when I print out guesses, I get 8. One thing you can see here is that the variable takes on the role of its value. So when I print out the variable guesses, the value that guesses has at that time is what gets printed out. So that's it. Now you know how to use variables to store data in programs. And if you're going to build a game, you can keep track of information crucial to the game using variables.